Lots of stream of people adding and joining us. Welcome everyone again to our session. And thanks so much, Jay. As you're entering, if you'd like to introduce yourselves down there in the chat, we invite you to do that. My name is Missouri, and I'm with the Women's Foundation California. I'm excited to welcome you to the third part of our series on retirement and basically all of what is under that umbrella. I do want to reintroduce you, reconnect you to our guide, Saundra Davis, who has been just introducing us and also informing us about a lot of the different pieces and aspects to consider when planning and just imagining what retirement will look like for all of us, as it will be different for us all. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Saundra, who also has a guest, Patrick, that I'll have her introduce to us all. So take it away, Saundra.
Thank you, Missouri. I am so glad to be back with all of you. We're going to hold for just a moment, let a few more folks join us, and then we're going to jump right in. What I'd like for you to do while we're giving folks a chance to come in is to go ahead and type for me down in the chat, if you would, what was the main takeaway for you from last session? What was the main takeaway? What do you remember from last week? And you can type, or if you're so inclined, you can unmute yourself and talk, whichever feels best for you. What really stood out for you last week? All right. Yeah, the considerations. And one of the things about that, Carol, is that, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about tonight. I've got one of my favorite financial people in the whole world with me tonight, and we're going to talk about all the things. We're going to talk about all the things. And you're right, Renee, the number is an estimate. It is an estimate because things change and the world changes, we change, what we want changes, all of that. So great. Everyone else, just go ahead and type for me. What is your takeaway? Yep, doing the math, that planning. And Lisa, one of my favorite quotes, I think it was Eisenhower, says the plan is worthless, but the planning, right? The planning is what is crucial, right? Because the fact is, it doesn't matter whether you do a plan for yourself or you have someone do a plan for you. Literally, the moment you finish it, it is obsolete because everything changes. All of the assumptions that we make change. And so now the main point is for you all to have the comfort level and the power to be able to change the plan as your life changes. And Renee, you're going to know, if you don't already know, you're going to know how to figure it out before we leave each other tonight. All right, team, it is right at 5 after. We're going to go ahead and get started. And those of you who maybe are just now joining, we've just been doing introductions of me, and I'm getting ready to introduce my friend and colleague. Those of you who haven't, or this might be joining us for the first time, I'm Saundra Davis. I am a financial coach. I have a master's degree in financial planning, and I got that master's degree after spending 40 years of my life knowing nothing about money and making a lot of decisions that were not in my best interest. And my work is centered around making sure that all people have access to competent and ethical financial education and planning, irrespective of their income or their wealth. And that is what I've spent the last almost 20 years doing after making a lot of my own financial mistakes. So I am thrilled to be here with Missouri and Jay again, my Soul Train gang, as we talk about financial stuff. So this is what we're going to do before we get started. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you to put your fingers together. Can't remember if we did this last week, but whether we did it before, we're going to do it again. And I want you to rub your fingers together, your forefinger and your thumb together, bringing such deep attention that you can feel the ridges of your fingerprints. And if your mind starts to drift, just come on back to the rubbing of the fingers. All right, let's take a deep breath together. And let that go. All right, let's do this. Give me an emoji that lets me know where you are right now. What are you feeling like? I'm going to go with this one. There. I am excited to be with you all as always. I'm also thrilled to be joined with. So y'all remember last week, I gave you access, or maybe it was before, I gave you access to the book. Special guest is the author of the book. Tell you why this matters. I met Patrick at least a decade ago, maybe even more. And it was so funny because, probably even more, because I was teaching at Berkeley then. And it's so funny because Patrick is a renegade in the investment and financial planning field. And I say that because most people in the field, they spend a lot of time and energy trying to get you specifically, every one of the 23 people on this call, trying to get you to be afraid to do it yourself. And Patrick was just the opposite. And I asked him to come to my class when I was teaching at Berkeley. I was teaching graduate level students. I asked him to come to my class, and he's like, "Are you sure you want me to come to your class? You know that I'm not going to be saying the stuff that most financial professionals say." I'm like, "That's exactly why I want you to come." So Patrick is a founder and CEO of an investment firm that had 42 billion with a B, y'all, under management at the end of 2020. And he's a leading expert on after-tax investing. And for me, even more important than that, he was a research director at Morningstar. And Morningstar is this, and I'll let Patrick tell you what Morningstar is. But what I'm most proud of, and what he says here, dung. Now, y'all who know, that's dung is the term for, here we go. What's this emoji? Dung is the term for, where is it? Y'all know. Okay, y'all, there we go. Thank you, Diana. Poop, right? Poop disturber. And the reason he says he's a poop disturber is that he causes this profession to have to rethink how we deal with people and how we support people in learning how to do this for themselves. And so I'm really excited about this. We've done a lot of talking about, you know, who's responsible for what and all that. But what Patrick is going to do tonight is really help bring it home. And that's why I wanted him to join me. So please join me in giving my friend a big round of applause and a warm welcome. Patrick, I am so glad that you are here. Do you want to say a couple of words before we go into the overview?
Just what an honor it is to be invited to this session. And I hope I can live up to even half of what Saundra is promising you.
I'm sure you can. You always do. All right. So first session, we went to where are you now? Understanding that three-legged stool. Session 2, we looked at where are you going? What matters most to you? And then figuring out what does your number look like? And we talked a little bit about that. I also shared with you all my acorns number so that you all could see what that market volatility can look like. And one of the reasons that I did that before Patrick came is I want you to normalize that can feel uncomfortable. I want you to notice what happens for you when you think about this aspect of the work that we're doing together, right? Because that part's important. Information without you feeling confident and competent to take action it's nice to have, but it doesn't change anything. And my hope for you is that you walk away from this session tonight really feeling like you have an actionable plan, even if it is get somebody to help you. But if you decide to do it yourself, I want you to have an actionable plan that you know and have confidence in you. Nobody cares more about your money than you do. And of course, the people who are trying to take it away from you. So I'm wanting you to be able to manage your money in the way that is satisfying for you. So tonight is all about the action plan. What is next and what actions will you take now? So I got ahead of myself. So we're going to deal with any lingering questions. We're going to look at that last part of that three-legged stool, what you do for yourself. And of course, at the end, we're going to have our Q&A. Now, as is always the case, go ahead and put in your questions in the chat. We'll take them as we go. There might be a situation where we ask you to hold because we're going to get to that. But tonight is all about making sure you walk away with your questions answered to the best that we can. Recognize that this is intended for education. This is not investment advice, but we are going to do everything we can to answer every question that we can. We have some questions that had already come in, and we want to make sure that you know we're going to be talking about all of these tonight. Some of them we talked about last week, but I just want to make sure that you all know we didn't forget about your questions. How do I plan for my retirement, and if I'm caring for family members or having to even support family members in another country? That's one of the things that you want to make sure of. Remember when we talked last week, I mentioned that some people will say, well, you only need 80% of your current income or your current expenses in retirement. Well, for some of you, that might not be true. You might have to be looking out for younger people. You might have to be looking out for elders. So you really want to look at what is the financial situation you anticipate being in when you're in retirement. So who else are you sharing your money with? Those kinds of things. So when you're looking for your number, you want to include all of that. Having no employer contribution for retirement. So when we're looking at that three-legged stool, right? So if your employer doesn't have a plan, then that means even more of this is on you, right? And how do you help the organization understand how to do it? If your organization is in California, check out Cal Savers. It was in our first conversation, session 1, CALSAVERS, Cal Saver, and they can help you talk to your employer about a contribution plan. Even if it's not with them, like having a mechanism where you can save for yourself through a program with your employer. I have a retirement fund saved, not sure if putting money in the right kinds of accounts. That's what Patrick and I are going to talk about tonight. And then how to plan for healthcare. We talked about that in week 1 on Medicare. So if you weren't here for that, make sure that you check out the video of that one. How to allocate retirement investments to generate steady annual income without eroding the underlying investment amount, which we know is the principal, because we had that conversation last week. Patrick and I will talk about that tonight. Someone wrote about, I'm a family caregiver, haven't been in the workforce. What's the best way to catch up who have been in the paid workforce? The first thing I want to say is you will harm yourself by trying to compare what you need to do for you with what happened for people who are in the paid workforce. So let's remove the comparison. I would like for you to focus on what is the best practice for you in your situation. And even more so, what is available to you? If you're a family caregiver and someone in your family has a disability, if you are not part of the in-home health services program where they actually pay you to care for your family members, please check into that. Please check into that, making sure that you're receiving everything that you are eligible for. So if you've got a family member, if that person is a veteran, there is military aid and attendance for people who are caregivers, make sure that you are getting everything that you are eligible for. Okay, what should I do with multiple retirement accounts? We talked about this last week, but I just wanted to put it in front of Patrick as well. And and what to do if your employer does not have benefits. Is there an accessible way to ensure that you're not invested in certain industries? So of course, this is a compact question. So if you don't want to invest in things that you feel are outside of your values, Patrick and I are going to talk about that again tonight. The idea of investment is daunting and difficult to understand. That's why we're here. What tips do you have for new investors to learn and develop investment habits? So Patrick and I are going to talk about that too. So we're at that stage where we're looking at the us. What do we do? What do we do for ourselves? When we were together last week, we looked at writing our number in our own words. So one of the things that I asked you to do was write kind of the paragraph, if you will, or even just a couple of sentences about where do you think you're going to be, right? When you think about what's most important to you, we're going to help you fill in the numbers. So do you have any questions about that? If somebody would tell me, like, what was your experience if you did try it? No shame if you didn't, but if you did and you have questions about it, or if you didn't because you have questions, now's the time. Yes, Allie, talk to me.
I've got my questions all highlighted and ready.
Excellent.
I'm that type A student. So the part that says I did my budgeting, I got my currently spend. I had some questions about my assumptions that I need to make on. Do you have any guidance around how you decide how much you're planning on spending less than that?
Yeah.
Is that like, I think my assumptions were like, maybe because you're not spending on healthcare, assuming you have Medicare. And then we talked a lot about mortgage and assuming you're owning your own home, or depending on what your mortgage situation is, if you think you'll own by then or not.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yes. I was wondering if there's anything else, any other assumptions I should be building into that.
Yeah, there's a couple. So a couple of the things that financial professionals say kind of in general, right, is that they think, your work clothes budget will go down, right? So the things that any expense related to you going to and from work might be one thing to consider. The main thing I want to say about these things, though, Allie, is that that's not always true, and so any assumption that you make sure that it's true for you, not just a standard rule of thumb, right? If there are expenses that you have now that are specifically related to your work, think about whether or not you'll still need those expenses. I'll let Patrick chime in too about the medical thing, because, now I'm not on Medicare yet. I have another 2 years actually, because I'll be 63 this year. So I don't know how much it costs to get, a lot of times people have to get the part A and the part B. And if things aren't covered, they might have to pay for certain things under there. So I don't know what those prices are now. So I don't think it's safe to assume that you'll have no medical expenses. I think it's really important to find out what medical expenses are you likely to have and try to estimate those as best you can. The other thing is, who else is relying on you for income right now? If people are relying on you for income and you have life insurance, that might be an important thing to maintain. If nobody's relying on you and you're still paying for a life insurance policy, you might decide that, like, I'm uninsurable. Uninsurable at a reasonable cost. They wanted me to pay $600 a month because of my health. Thank you, Susan. So I want to, and that was unreasonable, for me to pay life insurance is that. So you want to look at everything that you're spending now, put a yes or a no as to whether or not you're still going to be spending it. And the thing I'll say, Allie, while you're doing this, also kind of on a separate little column, these are the assumptions I'm making, and this is why I'm making them, so that you don't forget, because as life changes, you want to remember why you made the assumptions that you made. Thank you, Susan. I'm a vet, so I'm a disabled vet, so all of my medical is covered by the VA. So I don't have copays. I don't have any of that. If you are a veteran or a spouse of a veteran or have been a dependent, look into everything to see what you are eligible for. Don't assume you're not. Let them tell you you're not. Let them tell you you're not. Allie, did I answer your question, or is there
You
more to
did,
it?
that's perfect. And then I don't want to.
No, go ahead. What else?
But
What
the
else?
second part of that was also in the line that says the amount of annual income from other sources we are counting on.
Yeah.
And that I did the tabulation for Social Security income and then the adjustment for inflation. But is
Okay.
there some other sources of income I should be thinking about? Just if I'm still earning income, or is there anything else I should think of?
I would add those. I would think about, so for me, like I told you, I had to change careers. So I literally changed careers knowing that I was going to have to work at least until 70. And so if you intend to continue working, you want to make sure that you're putting that income. If, you know, and it could be, maybe it's not even a full-time job, but something that is a profitable hobby or something else that you might be making money from. I literally just this year went back to work for someone else. I haven't worked for somebody else in 30 years. You know, I'm gonna tell y'all, did I mention I haven't worked for nobody else for 30 years? And so now I literally am a W-2 employee. I did that in part because of the benefits and in part because I just love the work. And so I'm putting money away there. So that's another source of income. So any other income stream, any potential inheritance. Here's the thing, but with all of these streams, with all of these possibilities, you want to make sure that you're not making assumptions. Like I've known some people to say, well, I'm counting on an inheritance. And then when they're expecting it, something has changed and that inheritance not there. So you just want to be careful what you're counting on. If it is not 100% as close as possible to 100% sure, you want to run your numbers with and without, so you know what is truly on your plate to manage.
And on that note, I did the SSI calculation that the website told me. I did that inflation adjusted and then also did 77% decrease.
Yeah.
Or
Good.
77% of the total.
Yeah.
That was the number you kind of estimated for us, right?
Yeah. That's what the data says from the Social Security report of January of 2022. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank
you. Great question. Renea.
My question, thanks, Ali, for your questions. That helps me also. But I got really stuck in calculating. This is more like a math thing. It's just like the future inflation adjusted income per year. I was like, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah. Now
so
remember, Renea, that's what that spreadsheet was for.
Yes, and I couldn't, there were things that I didn't understand about, like when it says retirement for savings or I think that was the name. I wasn't sure if it's something that I would have in an IRA or something that I put away in a savings account for retiring or a combination of both.
Okay.
So I wasn't that sure of how to use that calculator all that well.
We're gonna do that in a little more detail tonight. We're gonna do that again tonight.
Mm-hmm. And also in terms of the assumptions, it's like, okay, I'll finish paying my mortgage when I'm 73 and I put that I retire at 70. Then, those are like not extra income, but less expense.
Yep. And what that means is it gets exactly to the point of why the plan is crucial. The planning is crucial because as things change, you're going to want to look at your numbers again. What this calculator doesn't do, let me check when we get to it. I don't know. So if you went to a financial planner, they would say, okay, what is going to happen between 70 and 72, 73? What is going to happen 73 to 75? And they would do it in that level of detail. There are some programs that you can do that for yourself. I don't know any of those that are free. I can tell you a couple that I've used that allow you to do that. And I'm sure Patrick will have some ideas as well. But things like that, things that will adjust You want to make sure you adjust your plan too, right? So for instance, and Patrick, rescue me if I'm wrong, what you could do is in that retirement calculator we talked about, in other income, it asks you like future changes. So you could say, what is your current mortgage times 12 and put that in other income. It's not perfectly clean.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you got it.
it can give you enough of a projection now, and then you redo it as you get closer to that time. That's like one way with this particular calculator. And Patrick, do you have any ideas about that?
He says that you don't have you don't need rescuing.
I do have one on my website. Let me go look it up and then way back in.
Perfect. Okay, Renee, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
He said that you need no rescuing. Obviously, you're doing a good job.
I'm going to tell you, one of the things that I'm very clear about, and I guess this is the reason that Jay and Missouri and Nina like for me to come, is that I'm very transparent about the stuff that I know and the stuff that I don't. Even with a master's degree in financial planning, because I don't do financial planning for people, I don't stay up on what is the safe withdrawal, what is the retirement, the required minimum distributions. I don't stay up on what are the current tax laws. I just don't do it. So when I have to answer a question, I actually have to go research just like anybody else. And so one of the things that I do is I surround myself with professionals that's what they do. So I have no problem asking a question if I don't know. And you'll notice that even in our time together, these 3 sessions, Martha, Susan, folks have been, folks who are paying attention to some of these topics, maybe even more than I am, are sharing their perspectives. And what I'm saying to all of you is, even if you hear something here, the main thing we want you to know is how to find information for yourself, how to know if the information is valid for you, right? So that's the main thing. We talked about the 12 steps. What is your current income? What are your retirement needs? How much money do you think you're going to need in retirement? What are your income needs once you are in retirement, right? How much time you have until retirement? What is your adjusted income? We'll talk more about that tonight. Other income sources, we've been talking about that. Recognizing what retirement spending is going to look like for you. Are you going to keep at the pace you are now? Are you going to be spending more, right? I'm planning to travel. Now, I may not, my plan is to have my mortgage. I think I've got about 180,000 left on my mortgage. My goal is to have that paid off in full so that I can travel more between 70 and about 85, right? And then I suspect I'll probably want to slow down a little bit after that. I think I told you all last week that I'm grappling with, is it a wise decision for me to buy a home right now and have a mortgage that is going to be definitely higher than what I have now? Right now, the answer is no, I'm not going to do that, but I don't know. I might get tired of having neighbors. The dude upstairs is thumping his bass like crazy up there, so I don't know how that's going to go. But what I'm hoping for all of you is that you're deciding and pivoting if you need to pivot. You're pivoting if you need to pivot, and you know how to pivot. So let me pause. Any question about the 12 steps? Comments, thoughts, questions? All right, so let's get into this. Now, this is a snapshot of it. If I need to pull up the calculator, I can do that as well. You'll notice here I changed the current age to 35. I think their template had 25. How old at retirement? I put that at 67, although that would not be the full retirement age for that person at 35. It probably would be 72, I think. Years to pay out after you retire. That is the number of years you expect to live. So they're projecting that this person will live until, what is that, 92? They're projecting this person will live until 92 years old. So 32 years to invest before retirement. Now, this is the sweet spot. So any of y'all who are in your 30s now, you've got a long time to be able to put money away. And this is where I'm going to ask Patrick to start chiming in here. The return before retirement, you'll notice that that's a higher risk. That's we're asking for 6%. We're wanting the market to deliver 6% on our investments. The return after retirement, and I know I said this last time, but we're reducing that because we don't want our money to be at as much risk when we are in retirement as we can afford to take before retirement. I'm going to pause. Patrick, what do you want to add about that?
Just on that point, the time horizon you're looking at really drives that sort of risk tolerance number you're talking about. And many people think, oh, as soon as I retire, I should go to a very low risk. But if you've got 25 years left, that's still a fairly long horizon and a lot of inflation risk. So it doesn't switch that radically. If you're like, when my parents were in their 80s, I had them in a very conservative portfolio. It was still 30% stocks and 70% safer things like bonds. So it's really about your horizon. 6 and 3 is a pretty radical shift for one point in time.
Yeah, and to that point, how much you have saved, I think this, I can't remember whose question this was. I can't remember who said this, but someone just said, should I save or should I invest? And it's a combination of the two, right? So I'm trying to make sure that I have sufficient savings, liquid, accessible cash that can hold me for up to a year once I retire. Because if the market is down, I don't want to have to pull my cash. I don't want to have to pull my investments out. I want to be able to have enough savings that I can live on is to be able to weather those storms. So to Patrick's point, there's no way I'm going to have set aside enough money to retire. It's just not going to happen unless, and I don't play the lottery, so I can't hit it, right? So I have to make sure that I'm reducing my expenses, saving as much as I can, so I'm not in a position where I have to draw down my investments if the market is down. And Patrick, you let me know when you want to show your slide, because we're going to be on this one for a minute until you take over. So number one, I would agree. I'm 62. I'm still chasing a higher than 6% return because I can't afford not to. I can't afford not to. 2 weeks ago, I went to buy some gluten-free bread. Y'all, my gluten-free bread was $15 a loaf. $15 a loaf for a loaf of bread. And I'm used to it being $8. And literally between January and now, it went from 8 to 15. And so we just don't know what's going to happen. So I'm still taking on more risk than the rules of thumb would say that I should be taking on at my age. But my capacity, my risk capacity is able to allow me to do that because I've saved enough that if I have to wait for that market to correct and go back up, hopefully, I can wait because I have enough money in savings and I have enough income that I'm okay. I don't need to start to draw this money down yet. I'm going to pause and answer any questions of where that might have just brought up. Any questions about understanding the risk?
If no one has a question, then I may go into a little bit of one of my slides on that. But
okay, go ahead. I think you can. Are
okay.
you able to share?
I think you have to stop sharing. Yeah,
okay,
great.
there you go.
Okay, so great. Everyone see that?
Yep.
So when Saundra asked me to join her on this, I kept thinking about how much the investment industry benefits from people feeling intimidated. They benefit from men feeling intimidated. They benefit probably even more from women feeling intimidated. And I'll just to undercut that, I'll share some research that on average, women are actually slightly better investors. And the reason is because women have no idea what's going to happen. Women's financial forecasting is not strong. Men are just as bad, but and I'm sure this will be a great surprise to you guys. Men think we can do it. That we do know what's going to happen. And so women are like, I'm not going to do anything, which is usually the right step in terms of how should I react to market changes? My answer is always nothing. Do nothing. That's the smartest way to invest. So this chart I'm showing may look a little intimidating. It's basically trying to get at this issue Saundra was just mentioning, like, well, how much in this really risky thing, here we're just talking about stocks and bonds. Bonds are, you're basically, it's much lower risk, but you end up with a much lower return. So what should my mixture be? The challenge is it depends on your time horizon. So for example, is being 100% cash a good investment? You see that down on the lower left-hand side for a 1-year horizon. It's terrific because you have very little what's called market risk. So for a really short horizon, a cash invest, like by cash, I mean like a money market fund or a high yield bank account. But unfortunately, because of inflation, money markets, which sound safe, are a really bad long-term investment. So as you see going across the bottom, we go up in years, and that's where the inflation risk really starts to cause a lot of trouble. Yeah, so at 5 years, you want to start taking more risk. And if you get way out, as Saundra's adding 35 years, that can mean, wow, a really high allocation to stock. The big warning around that, however, is that's assuming you can stomach the risk. That's assuming you can tolerate emotionally the whipsaw, the market careening around, like 2022 was a pretty bad market. And a lot of people get dispirited and say, I'm done with stocks. They're too risky. So this is a kind of simplified way of looking at it. The longer your time horizon in general, the more market risk you should take. But please remember that kind of warning, which says you'll get paid for the strength of your stomach lining.
Patrick, let me pause for just a
Sure.
moment here. So I want to take Diana's question and Susan's question, but before we do that, I just want to say, when he's talking about market risk, and when you all go back and look at most of you probably know this already, but I would just want to be consistent in making sure anything we say we define. Market risk is the risk we all take just by investing, just by being in the market. There's a market risk. So it doesn't matter what you choose, what you don't choose. There's a market risk of just when you invest, you are making a decision that you're going to put your money in there with the hope of getting a higher return. Whereas saving, we're putting it all here in cash and we're just keeping it safe, right? So I just want to make sure that we're clear about what that means. Diana, what did you want to ask?
And I think part of my question is more rhetorical. Like I'm all in on risk, and I think I'm like a moderate risk taker, and I'm in it for the long haul. I get that portion, but I think what's been floating around in my mind is like I'm a single person right now. But what if in 5 years I'm not? What if in 2 years I end up having a child? Like I guess all of this, I think when I did the retirement calculator, I was okay with having a 1 million plus shortfall, because I was like, okay, well, this is the whole three-legged stool idea. Like, I get that, but like, how do you account for then these other major things? Or is that just part of life and having to keep it in mind and you adjust as you go, or just if any of the other people out there are like also have that in mind, like how, like you're all in for, you can manage it, but if there's a big life change, like then how do you course correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So
so
I'm
it's
gonna,
more if you're rhetorical or philosophical.
well, it's not really rhetorical. It's a great and very honest question. So I'm going to say what I want to say and then turn it over to Patrick. First of all, for me, I'm trying to save all the time. And I do, like I said, I do both. I save and I invest. I just opened an account today with Betterment because right now they have a savings account that is earning 4.5. I don't know how long it's going to earn 4.5, but I opened an account. I already had an account. I hadn't funded it. And so I moved some money because at Patelco, I'm getting like, 1.1 on my savings account. And so I had to move it because I just cannot afford for my money not to work as hard as I do. So I don't have any answers, just like you. We have no idea what's going to happen. No idea. I don't have any idea how long I'm going to be able to work. I have no idea how long my brain is going to hold up. So I plan as best I can with what I know. And I just make sure, Diana, that I talk to people like Patrick. So I try to not do stupid stuff. And to his point, and when I say stupid, I don't mean ignorance. I mean, I try not to let my emotions move me, because when my emotions move me, I'm a mess. So I don't watch the market daily. I don't listen to Bloomberg's talking heads talk about what, I don't listen to any of that. I have a plan. I work my plan and my money is growing. And I just make sure that I don't have to take it when it's down. That's really what my process is. And the reason I believe in that is because that's what's enabled, to Patrick's point, I can sleep at night. I have a portfolio that allows me to sleep at night. And so that's the thing I'll say. Patrick, what do you want to add?
So that's a great sort of description of the challenges. So Diana, let me answer that in two ways. You mentioned it might be a rhetorical question. I'll start with a sort of rhetorical comment, which is one of the challenges of trying to teach this kind of planning is it assumes you know everything that's going to happen in your life. And then you just fill it in and look at the answer. It's that simple. And you raise the excellent point of, well, life's kind of unpredictable. So I would agree with the way Saundra phrased it as you need to incorporate that. If you're planning on having a family, for example, that is going to change your expenses and you need to sort of bake that in. So just the pragmatic answer is try and incorporate as much as you can extra expenses like like raising a family. So don't bank on expenses as a single person, but then you're the one who's going to make all those trade-offs, and it's like there's no the right answer is the one that's best for your life and your situation. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that it gives a different perspective and then a bit calming.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Diana. How can you do this with ease? Even if you think, okay, I'm 62, there's no chance I'm going to be having any babies, right? But what I am going to be doing is likely having to, deal with some different health concerns. I'm likely to not be able to work as much as I work now, right? So I factor in my savings for that. I factor in my investings for the things that I think could happen. And then again, like I said to Allie, writing down those assumptions so I never lose track of why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? So thank you. I don't think it was rhetorical. I think it was a great question. Susan.
So I wanted to really understand this chart. So I am in the one.
Go back, Patrick. Go back to your chart.
Go ahead, Susan.
Because I'm in the 1 year square. And so mine's in a 403B, most of my money. And they've said, leave it there, leave it in stocks. I mean, it's gradually getting more conservative, but if it's all in cash, then I don't have anything against inflation. that I won't make enough return for the inflation over my next 20 or 30 years of life.
Correct. So
That's-
what's the question? I mean, it sounds like you just stated your own situation very accurately.
Right, but this chart says if I have 1 year to left, I should be at 100% cash.
No, that's 1 year until you're spending the money. That's not 1 year until retirement.
Yeah, 1 year until you're
That's 1 year
spending
until you need to spend all the money.
All the money.
Yeah. So if your retirement is, say, 25 years, you'd be up in the upper right-hand corner.
Oh, that's the number of years I will be retired, not the number of
It's
years
the number of
until
years
I retire.
until you spend the money. It doesn't even
Ah.
have to tie to retirement. It's like if you're saving for a house you're going to buy in 10 years, it's different from if you're saving for a house you're going to buy in 1 year. So the 1 year till retirement, and I should have explained that. Yeah, the years on the bottom is years until you spend the money.
Spend all of it, not
Yeah.
start withdrawing.
Correct.
Okay.
And frequently what people do is do like a kind of halfway point. Like I believe a lot of the what are called life cycle funds that prepackage everything, they assume you're going to have spent it all. Like their target is like 10 years after retirement, meaning like, okay, maybe it's 20 years. I don't know what the actual data are on longevity. I think say roughly 20 years means 10 years is a good sort of rule of thumb. So this is very much in the when you'll have spent the money on average. So at least 10 years, probably more like 15. So yeah, you should, if you're about to retire in a year and your health is relatively decent, yeah, you should be in the sort of 50-50 to 70-30. And people often ask, what's the right answer? And my first response is usually, how much can you tolerate? Because people dive into the stock market and don't realize, wow, you didn't tell me like I could lose half my money, right? Because if you measure the stock market in annual terms, the worst in the last, well, in this century was the 08-09 meltdown. US stock market was down 52%. But if you measure, okay, what are the odds of losing money over a 20-year period? Stocks have never, in the 150 years of recorded history of the US stock market, have never done worse than cash. Stocks have always, every single 20-year period. But that sounds so easy and obvious. The problem is the psychic emotional cost of some of those 20 years. Like, what if you bought in the beginning of 1929, the famous stock market crash? Yeah, by 1949, you would have been better off in stocks, but that was a lot of pain for the first 10 years. So again, back to Diana's question, it all sounds kind of clinical and robotic. And but the problem is we're humans. And so it's really hard doing it. Now, if you can ride through bad times, like if you were invested in stocks during 08-09, or even during the beginning of the pandemic, say March of 2020, and you never sold out, that's a pretty good sign. That's a signal, hey, maybe I do have the stomach lining to endure this. So did that answer your question, Susan?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and I want to point out that that's really where the emotional aspect, and we've talked about this before, this is where you have to trust, first of all, choosing a pathway you trust, and then trusting yourself to stick it out. And what Patrick said about the difference between women investors and men investors is really true. It's not that we don't know, it's that men feel this level of confidence, whether they should or not. And women feel this lack of confidence, often, not all women, but many women feel this lack of confidence. And the fact is, our choice to set it up and do nothing is often the best choice. I told you all about my Pax account, right? I got that back in 1994, and I just don't touch it. I can't add anything to it because I'm not working for that organization anymore. The thing has tripled with just me doing nothing, And granted, it's not a huge amount of money because I never really invested a huge lot of money, but it's 3 times what it's 3 times what I put into it. And so unless you can do the mental work and the emotional work of making a decision and sticking to your decision, it's really important to make sure that you're choosing something that you can live with. I am still, like I showed you all my Acorns account. I'm at 90% stocks and 10% bonds in that account. And I don't put anything in there that I can't afford to lose, but I also make sure that I have enough other accounts that I don't need to touch that. That's my goal. So that's how I deal with it. Patrick, what else do you want to say about it? Well, let's pause. Any questions about this chart? I don't want to leave this till everybody feels like I can look at this and I understand what this tells me. So Patrick said, this is when the money's spent, right? So if you need that money in a year, within this first year, you want to be in cash. If you can wait 5 years, now you look at the inflation risk, right? Inflation, and again, we don't know what's going to happen. It could go up, it could go down. What we're talking about is the risk. And so if at 5 years out, you can have a portfolio that's 50-50, 70-30, and we're talking about stocks to bonds, or 90-10. I'm at about 10 years out, right? And I'm up here. I'm in that 90-10.
Well, but you're not in the 90-10 when you take all your money.
No.
This is
I'm saying
assuming,
where I am right now.
Yeah, but this is assuming absolutely all your money is invested this way.
Yeah, well, that's true. No, it's not.
So you're not at 90-10.
No, okay, you're right. I would say overall, with all of my accounts, I'm probably at about 70-30.
And the advice is do it with open eyes. So Saundra's aware, like, stock market's going to careen around. And in fact, this is also highlighting, I think, one of the myths about investing is you have to spend a lot of time on it. You have to follow the market. Like Saundra says, she doesn't check Bloomberg. I recommend that people look at their portfolio every 3 years. And in fact, I even say, if you're looking at it weekly, that's tempting fate, because you're just going to make yourself crazy. If you're in it's almost bring like a Buddhist perspective of sit quietly, do nothing is actually a terrific way to invest. It sounds counterintuitive, but investing is actually, a lot of it's about good habits, not necessarily this superior analysis. And that's really supported by the data. That's not just a sort of random opinion. In fact, I think I mentioned her in my online course that you all have available for free, not in the book because I hadn't learned about her. My real investment hero is a woman named Grace Groner, who no one's heard of, probably. She lived for over 100 years. She bought $180 worth of stock in 1935 and never, ever withdrew it. She didn't spend the dividends. It was all reinvested. When she was in old age, people thought she was impoverished and they'd bring her food. When she died at the age of 100, that $180 had grown to 7.2 million. She left it all to the college where she went to, got her undergraduate degree. And she never spent the money for 75 years. That's why she's a hero, not through clever analysis, but because she was very disciplined and never spent it early. So that's the message I'm trying to convey. And I don't want to make that sound easy. The thing is, when investments blow up, it makes all of us unhappy. I've studied this for decades, and I get unhappy when the stock market blows up. It's not as though you can cure yourself of that, but the goal is to try and really internalize that's the nature of the beast. Like, if you're going to be in this long return market that helps protect you from inflation, you're going to be riding a roller coaster, and just sort of be present with those emotions. They're going to be bad. You're going to feel awful when the market tanks. That's just how it works.
So finding your Zen. I'm hearing Patrick say finding your Zen. All right, so y'all give me a signal. What are we going to do to find that Zen? How do we find it? All right, Patrick, go. So we're going to pull this screen down. Let's go back to where we were. So in this calculator. So I do think it's important to take Patrick's point. The return before retirement and the return after may not be this huge gap, may not be as big of, he's saying, Patrick, rescue me if I'm wrong, but you're saying like maybe put a 1 point difference there rather than a 3.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, and then annual inflation. I know financial planners generally say 3 or 4%. Patrick, what do you want to say about that?
I actually cheat and just look at what's called real return, which is the blending of the two of them. So for fairly risky portfolios, I think like a 3 to 4%, that would be way out at the high stock for a real return. And for the safer ones, it's more like 2.
All right, so you're saying here in this box that, let me.
And you have 3 in there. So sorry, for the pre-retirement, you've got 6.
Mm-hmm. That's pre-retirement.
Right, but that 6 is before inflation.
Right.
So once you include the inflation, you're basically looking at earning only 3. And that's a pretty accurate number for a relatively aggressive portfolio.
Okay, so I want to answer other people had this question before. How does inflation factor in? So what Patrick's point is that this 6% we're talking about, that is before inflation, right? Now, here's the thing. If we go down to 3 and that number is before inflation, inflation wipes that out. Inflation just wipes that out. Does everybody see that? Y'all give me something. Let me know. Is it? Yeah. Okay. So I really want to make sure that everybody's clear about how this works, because this is the information that can help you choose. Yes, Allie, talk to me.
Would it be okay if you just told us what numbers should go in those boxes? I think I'm confused. Are we changing any of them, or should we leave it at 633?
So there's 2 things. I'm going to say this. For me, I tend to take more risk. I won't say, there's 2 ways that financial planners do this, right? They look at your whole situation, and then they give you what is your required rate of return to meet your target. That required rate of return might be higher than the risk you're willing to take, right? So they might say, we're going to beat the market. You need 12% to make your numbers work. I know that I'm not willing to do something that has that kind of risk. So I don't know that anyone can tell you what that number should be, because that number has a lot to do with your stomach lining, like Patrick described, right? How much you can tolerate. Patrick, what do you want to say about?
Can I just ask before we go to Patrick? So return before retirement is risk amount, basically, of high risk or high yield or low yield,
exactly,
low risk or high risk.
Exactly.
And return after retirement is the same thing, just
same thing.
What back on that chart? Okay,
right.
So
it's right.
Like risk numbers.
Right on the chart, the return after retirement would be the lower one. But as I said, you don't want to go too low with that one. So I mean, Alex, Saundra's right, but I think it's a lot to ask people to figure that out. So I would say, like, Saundra said she's about 70-30, and I think 3% is a great a real return, meaning after inflation, for 70-30. And if you're down at like 50-50 or even a little below that, then you want to start looking lower real returns, like 2%. And Saundra's point is valid, that you've got this trade-off, because the higher return from stocks sounds great sitting now, but you got to bake in the emotional pain of watching that thing careen around, and it feels awful, and the people around you will be panicking. And that's just as I said, the market will pay you for your stomach lining and how much. It's a weird irony, like, it'll pay you for how much suffering you go through.
Yeah. Patrick, do me a favor, put your slide back up.
Sure.
So when we're looking on the left side here, when we're looking here, what kind of percentage is general, right? I know we don't know for sure, but what percentage, when we're talking 3, 6, 9, 12, whatever, what percentage would each one of these most likely lean toward?
For real return?
For real return.
I tend to be conservative.
And real
on this.
return,
So,
remember y'all,
yeah,
real return is after
inflation.
After inflation.
Yeah. So historically, the stocks have been great. They're not so much an inflation hedge as they earn a really high return that can help you offset the inflation risk. So I would say up at the very top, sort of like the highest I would suggest might be, let's call it 3 to 4% for the two top rows. And then for these middle two, like the 50-50, you're probably looking more like 2 to 2.5, and the 20 stocks, 80 bonds, that would be less than a 1% real return.
And that's below, that's after inflation though. So
after inflation, that's all real
Okay.
returns.
So up here, these two you said, or the one?
Yeah, let's say the top two would be in the 3 to 4. Some people would view the 4% as a little aggressive. It's a little aggressive for me, but historically it's actually been higher than that. So yeah, 3 to 4 real return. And then like as you get as 50-50, you're looking more like a 2%.
Okay,
real
so
return.
let's go back. Okay, stop sharing for a moment. So let's go back, y'all, and look at what that means in this document, right? So if we're going to say 3 here at an annual inflation, right, then we want to add the 6, then gives us that 3%. So once you deduct the annual inflation, your return before retirement is going to give you that addition, that 3. So yes, it says 6%, but after tax, you're actually ending up with 3%. Okay. So I just want to make sure everybody knows how to take the information you just saw and put it in here. Let me pause for a minute. How are we doing with this? How are we doing with this content? Okay. Any questions before we move on? Okay, so in the what's medium mean, Missouri?
I'm just letting it kind of slowly sink into my brain. It's like I hear it and I understand it, but I feel like when I go to sleep tonight, it'll make more sense.
Yeah, and that's how it is sometimes. What I'd like for you to do, I just want to make sure that you understand what the numbers mean. Then when you're at your computer, play with the numbers, right? I just want you to make sure that you're understanding the relationship from the interest rate to inflation. So whatever you put in, let me get my little pen back, whatever you put here and here, just remember to get the real rate, you have to subtract whatever you put here.
And
Okay.
on the, just to
Go ahead,
be
Patrick.
an irritant on the salary section, the way you have it shown here, you actually have a declining real salary
Yeah, yeah.
baked in, which is possible, but that'll make it really hard.
Yeah, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop sharing this and I'm going to share the actual spreadsheet and we're going to play around with the numbers there.
I think it's fine to say that the salary increase would look a lot like
inflation,
but
yeah.
I think it's pretty dour to bake in, especially for younger people, a long-term declining real, and you get into politics because there are some parts of society that have had declining real wages.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to play around with this. So Patrick, you're saying I should put 3 here.
Yeah,
If I'm going to put 3 in inflation, I'm going to put 3 here.
Yeah. Now you're just breaking even on your salary increase.
Yep. So, all right. So now we're playing with the numbers. Age 45, I brought it up a little bit. Age at retirement is 72. I think that's the full retirement age for that year. The return before 6%. Now here we're basically zeroing out, right? So I'm thinking, Patrick, do we want to say 4 here?
I'd even put 5. because I don't
Okay, all
think
right,
we
then.
want
All right, then let's say 5, Patrick. Let's say 5.
to get that conservative.
Let's say 5 then, Patrick. Now, are we going to go a little more aggressive here or no?
No, let's leave that at 6.
Allie's doing a dance. All right. So current salary. All
My
right.
numbers just went positive.
Y'all tell me what number you want me to put in the salary. Type it in the chat. What do you want to put? Come on now. Don't nobody have all night. Y'all type something. What do you want me to put? All right. All right. Annual increase at 3. What do we want to put at the percentage of salary saved? What percentage of if salary is 66, how much are we saying we're saving? All right, Incarnate, we'll do that next. We'll do 100K next. How much are we saving? We're saving. Renee, we can't save 0. Come on, y'all. Give me something.
You said earlier there are no wrong answers, but that one is violating the Saundra thought.
What are we gonna do?
I've got 10%, but I'm 10 years younger than this spreadsheet.
All right. So Renee wants 5. So we're gonna do 5. How much is our employer matching? Now, when they say 100%, they're matching 100% of your 3%, not 100% of your salary, right? So Renee, you'll have to put 0 here because you won't have contributions there. So then it shows you what your annual contribution is, right? It does the math for you, and it shows you what you do, shows you what your employer does. Now, and Renee, what you can do here is you can do a solo 401k for yourself. You can do a SEP. You can do a simple. Are simple still around, Patrick?
I think so. The solo 401k is the highest possible contribution.
Yeah. So I have a solo 401k. But my CPA does all of that. He just tells me what to do and I do it. So even if you are self-employed, that doesn't mean you can't do, you are your own employer, so you can do that.
But you get a 0 match.
But yeah, well, you get a 0 other than it, whatever you let your company put in. So we're going back to salary during retirement in today's dollars. And then that lets you know inflation adjusted is 146. So 66 in today's dollars is 146, 27 years from now, right? So that's our total retirement needs to fund 100%. Now that's not what that doesn't get all spent on day one. That is what you need to fund 100% of your retirement. And then what do we want to say in the current retirement savings balance? What do we want to say there? Y'all type for me. Give me an amount to put there. All right. All right. Age when income begins. Oh, this is other income. So value of current savings at retirement. So this is what your current savings balance would be. Balance of your current contributions in retirement. So that lets you know what you've got there. If there's other income in retirement that's going to happen, we'll put 72 there also. What I did here was I think I used $1,200 a month playing around with Social Security. Annual increase will do the same thing. That would be nice, huh? 3%. And that's if this is so remember we were, I think Allie was asking what could go in other income. This could be other income from employment. This could be gifts from other people. It could be like, for instance, I get $1,600 a month in VA disability. So that's what's in mine on here. So any other income that you have. And then any other assets, if you're going to sell a home, this is just a guesstimate here. I just did a guesstimate there, Renee. You can put Social Security there as well, though. You can do that.
Is putting Social Security at the top of that column, salary during retirement? Also, that's right.
Well, this is, this is if you continue to have, let me make sure I'm not lying to you. Hold on. This is where you estimate the lifestyle you want, the salary you think you could live on. So this is, remember we said that this is what you will need in retirement. So
Okay.
this is just the same information over here, just what do you need in retirement? Thank you for asking. Any other assets that you either have available to sell or have some value, lump sum pension, anything like that could go here. And then now this is the shortfall. This would be, it would be a negative amount. So let's see if we did this. Oh, that's, oh no, that's not enough. So this would indicate I have more than enough. You see that? This indicates that there's a 1.5 million shortfall. This is how long your money would last in retirement. This is how much additional annual savings you need. So this might tell you, okay, I need to work enough, or I need to do something that gets me this additional $1,746. So that's the reason I want you all to do this, because it will give you a clear picture, at least a projection, a target to shoot for, of if things don't go the way you want them to go, what is the target you're missing? So I don't want you looking at this number, because that'll stress you out. I want you to know this number, but I want you to focus on this number. What is the annual gap that I have to fill? Now, here's the thing. When you're younger, when you're 62, 63, 64, this might feel easy. This is going to feel less easy when you're 80, 85. Right? So I just want to make sure that you're continuing to think about what adjustments you can and might have to make. And this also tells you what percentage of your salary must you save now in order to reach the actual goal. Does that make sense? What are the questions? Tell me the questions. Yes, Missouri.
Actually, it's really helpful to think about the additional annual savings needed. But my question is, based on this, how many years do you need the additional annual savings amount
I think
to catch up?
I think this tells you down here.
Oh, okay.
I think this tells you down here when you, I think, Patrick, help me out. Is that what I'm seeing? We see the change in retirement right here.
I'm not sure. Can you go back to the top? So the question is, what was the question again, Missouri?
So on that person was 45 and they need to save an extra $17,000 a year to make up for that shortfall. And I guess was wondering, does that mean they needed $17,000 a year up until the year that they want to retire?
That would be my guess. That's how
Okay.
that's almost always done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Because otherwise it's
say
like,
it out loud so I can actually.
no, you're absolutely right. Like, otherwise it's saying you need to save in retirement, which is the point is you're saving for retirement. So
Exactly.
I'm not certain of the math, but that's how any spreadsheet I've seen like this would do it.
And yeah, so it's saying you need another 17,000 each year in order to hit your number. And maybe I confused you with Missouri with how I talked about it. But that is the correct way to look at this. This is the annual amount, and every time you all look at this spreadsheet, if you hover over that little red bullet there, it'll tell you this needs to be added to the current annual contribution. You see that? All right, I'm gonna stop. My house is their asset. Yes. Yes, Renea. If you could put the value of your house there, if it's something you want to sell. Can I change the percentage saved to 6%? Yes, I can, darling. Anything else you all want me to change? You want me to change a year, a current age?
That didn't lower the how much more we have to do very much.
No.
right?
This is
Because you have to
$1,000.
get up to put in 31.5. And you hit it dead on. Because
That's what it told us. Yep.
that's what it told us we need to save.
A third of your income, though, how realistic is that?
Exactly. Exactly. Marisa.
Hi, thanks. I have a question. I don't know if this is the right time, but can you speak about the mega contributions once you hit 50? Like, what are the guidelines?
Patrick, hit me.
Oh, are you asking how much difference that makes, or?
I'm asking, like, how much more can you contribute once you're
Oh, you can
50 and
contribute.
older?
I believe it's 6 or 7,000. I need to look at the exact number. 6 or 7,000 per year.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me.
But it matters.
catch up.
It matters only if you're already donating a large amount. So the current 401k for 2023 is something like
22.5.
22.5. Yeah.
22.5.
So it only matters if you want to contribute more than 22,500 per year. So
Yeah.
Okay.
it is a plus and a benefit, but it applies only if you have a fairly large dollar savings already.
Okay.
And it's 7,500 additional, raising your employee. This is if you're an employee. Now, Renee, this is to Patrick's point earlier. I think my CPA, which one is it, Patrick, where I was able to contribute 25% of my income? Is that because I had a solo?
That's as the employer portion of the solo 401k. Basically, solo 401ks, you can do around 60,000, and with the catch up, it's like 67. So it's a very big number if you can afford to save that.
I can't hit that number, but it's nice knowing I could if I was able to. All right. Any other numbers you all want me to play around with? Because I want to turn it over to Patrick to go through the stuff that he wants to make sure that you all hear. Any other questions? Does everybody know how to fill this out now? Show me something. Hit me in the chat. Give me a thumbs up, something. Let me know. How are you all feeling about this particular tool? All right, Missouri, I see you. Come on, y'all. Give me something now. I can't move until I see that. No. All right. Excellent. Good to see you. Susan, you're funny. All right. So I'm going to move this. Uh-oh, I moved the wrong thing. Hold on. All right. So now I'm going to stop that and make sure that I'm in the right spot. Okay, so that's our calculator. So now everything is there. Patrick, where do you want to begin? And this is, again, y'all, this is your time. So this is where you get your questions answered. Patrick's going to talk to you a little bit about transparent investing. He's also going to talk to you about some stuff that I might not know yet. So hit him, Patrick. Do you want to share your screen?
Sure. So well, let me start with the book Transparent Investing. It's available for free to all of you. It's aimed at people who understand the basics of investing. Like, it doesn't describe what a stock is or bonds, but it doesn't require much more background than that. And it might feel intimidating. That's kind of normal. A lot of the book's actually about psychology, what we were talking about. How do you have those good habits? Because the way I describe it is, you got two strikes against you as an investor. The first is your own brain, and that's evolution. The second is an industry that can be very helpful, but can also focus on its own revenue rather than your best outcome. So if the book is helpful, there's also an online course available, again, for free for you guys. And Saundra wanted me to go through these sort of basic steps, which I think you already covered a lot. So the step one is just the financial planning. What's your time horizon? What are you saving for? You guys have already done that. Saundra just walked you through that spreadsheet. We talked a lot about number two, what's your risk tolerance, and clarified this idea of how am I going to behave, not in an ideal world, but in reality, when the stock market blows up. And don't ask a question like, do you think the stock market will blow up? The answer is yes. We just don't know when and how badly. Asset allocation, that's that basic, how much in stocks, how much in bonds, what's the inflation risk? We kind of went through that with the chart. Okay, so we've pretty much done 1, 2, and 3. Number 4, choosing index funds. Which funds should you buy? Index funds, particularly for the stock side, because they're so reliable. They still have all the risk the market does, but they're really cheap, which means you get to keep more of your own money, and they have a really serious advantage over trying to outsmart the market, trying to go what's called active. I would just steer you. I've got a list on my website of some good examples. The basic rule of thumb on which index funds is go as broad as possible. Like broad meaning you can buy an index fund that has US and foreign stocks. It's got basically every publicly traded company in the world. You're buying capitalism. So
and Patrick,
yes.
Patrick, can I interrupt for a moment? So
Sure.
one of the things I remember that you used to always say is just buy the market.
Yep.
Just buy the market. Don't try to, should I go international? Should I go small? Should I go large? One of the first things, and Patrick was very influential in me choose, even with having a master's degree, I was still very nervous. I was still very emotional. And he said, buy the market. Don't try to figure out what's the best thing for you. Now, of course, it took me years to do what he said do. But once I got it, I got it. And so, so Patrick, what actions would they have to take if they were going to buy the market?
So we'll leave international out of it. There's some detail in that in the book. Like if you want to own the US stock market with one investment, you can do it directly with I'll just throw out like 3 really commonly known firms: Schwab, Fidelity, and Vanguard. Every one of those, they have their own in-house version of like the total US market. I think Vanguard's is called the total stock market index. Fidelity has some very inexpensive ones, as a Schwab. And you can, what most people do now is buy what's called an exchange traded fund, an ETF, which trades like a stock, but you're buying effectively the whole market. And that's how you would take the actual step of investing in the total stock market. My one warning would be Schwab, Fidelity, and Vanguard are all reputable, reliable firms, but I would be very cautious about their advice. Vanguard's a nonprofit, but they even have their issues. So like Fidelity and Schwab are great places to keep your money, but be very careful about asking them for advice, because what do you think they're going to try and sell you? The highest cost things.
The highest cost thing.
The most revenue.
And hold on just one moment, Patrick. So what's important about that, y'all, is that if you're going for 6%, right? And you need that 6%, and they have to get their 1 or 2 or whatever percentage that they're trying to get out of you. Now you have to take more risk to pay them so that you can keep the amount that you need. Y'all with me? Right? So if Allie says to me, well, Saundra, you're going to have to pay me $50. I've got to go and make an extra $50 to pay her. So I've got to put myself at a higher risk. Yes, Jay, we're going to talk about fees now. I would put myself at a higher risk in order to pay Allie. And I'm still not gaining anything from that higher risk. She is, I'm not. So Patrick, I'm sorry, I'll shut up now, but I just want to
No,
make sure that this gets
Yep.
really, really clear.
Yep. And it sounds like we're kind of quibbling over small amounts, but these fees really add up. And the benefit of going with index funds when you look at a really long time horizon is enormous. And the other advantage is they're incredibly simple. If anyone wants to ask the question like, well, how often do I need to check my account in terms of how my stock fund is doing? The answer to that is basically never. Like you invest in the stock market if you've got a 25-year time horizon and just don't look at it. And that sounds so counterintuitive. That's good investment. We had a question on fees. I just want to be conscious of time. We have 5 minutes. Is that right?
Talk a little bit about fees, please.
Yeah. So fees, they're kind of two separate levels of fees. And this, unfortunately, is where the most boring part, I mentioned in my book, the chapter on fees is the most boring and maybe a little intimidating, but it is something you need to study. You don't need to study how to call the stock market or how to do analysis. You do need to look at the fees. There are two sort of levels. One is what's the fees for the actual investment itself. Let's call that the asset fee. So like index funds can be as cheap as like 0.02% a year, which is really tiny. How does that compare to like active management? Might cost you 70/100ths or 100/100ths%. In other words, it can run like 30, 40, 50 times more expensive. So focus very much on fees. One of the greatest finance minds of our time, a guy named Bill Sharp, won Nobel Prize, all kind of things named after him. Somebody asked him, what's the most important thing I should look at in investing? And he said, fees. I love that. That's what he said. The second layer of fees is the fees you pay an advisor to pick those assets for you. That I call the wealth management fee. That is the part where it might be worth paying someone, it might not. Again, in the book, or if you don't even want to bother with the book, there's a free place on my website where it's basically a version of a chapter in the book. Should I do this myself or should I try and hire someone? And the answer is, how sure am I'm going to be able to ride through market downturns? How overwhelmed am I by this asset allocation, like that chart? If that just seems completely overwhelming, I'm never going to figure out how to do that. Then you might consider hiring someone, just pay a lot of attention to the fees. The one point I argue in the book and that chapter is, do not pay for someone who's going to tell you which stocks are going to do better or when the market is going to be up or down. That's very bad use.
They're lying, Patrick. They're just lying. Let's call it what it is. They have no idea.
They have my industry has a terrible track record. It doesn't mean we're useless. That's going too far, too cynical. But the idea of, I want someone, in fact, I had this happen at a seminar I gave. This woman said, I don't know anything about the market. I'm really worried about this. I want someone who understands that stuff to be in charge of my portfolio. And my answer to her was, you're right that you have no idea how to predict the market. My question for you is, why do you want to pay a lot of your money to someone else who also has no idea what's going to happen? So that's the cynical view, but financial planning, hand-holding, education, those are valuable services, but I want to beat the market. Don't pay anyone to help you do that. That I would argue is a waste of money. That help on the fee side?
Thank you. Yeah, now we're at time, so I want to be mindful that we promise folks they'll be out of here on time. This is what I'm asking you all to do now. Take a look at the book, take a look at the course, look at the financial series. Missouri just put the reminder there, and just make sure you let the Women's Foundation know what impact this is having, so that they can also know what else you need. What other topics do you need? There's a lot of pro bono financial planning available to you all. There are not as much pro bono coaching now that COVID is no longer a national crisis, but there are ways that you can get that kind of support. Thank you, Allie. Allie put something there about a website for impact investing. I will also share with the team some resources on social investing, how to invest for investing as part of your values. It's often called ESG, and many of the Vanguard I know has an ESG fund, so you can find those kinds of things. I'm a big fan of Vanguard in part because of Patrick, and that's where I have my accounts, but I don't use their advisor. I opened an account. I buy what is it? VOO. I have what is it? VOO, is that the one? VXOO, I can't remember. But I bought the fund and I just don't mess with it. I literally just don't mess with it. I think it's really important for you all to take action that you're comfortable with. And as he says there at the bottom, go garden, set it up. As far as one thing I did want to say about target date funds, the only problem I have with target date funds is that they might have you being more conservative than you can really afford to be if it's just based on your age. So you don't have to do a target date fund exactly on your age. I have one, but I have it for, I think, 30 years out, where they would have me at like 5 years out. So still, you want to factor in all of the things that we've discussed when you're making this decision. I'm going to stop talking now so you all can go. We really appreciate you being here. The thing I want to leave you with is you all can do this. You absolutely can do this. Get the support that you need. Watch the videos if you're not sure about some of the things that we talked about, and feel free to stay in touch with the Women's Foundation, and then learn and then advocate so that we can have an economic system that works for us all. I'll shut up now. Patrick, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much,
My
Saundra.
pleasure.
Thank you, Patrick. And thank you all for joining us. I do want to encourage you all to please fill out that survey. I'll share it once more in the chat. That is how we're able to kind of continue this series, your feedback, and also being able to tailor it to what everyone needs and wants to hear and learn about. So please take a few moments to fill that out, and also review everything that we've already done online on our YouTube channel. And you'll definitely be hearing from us because we want to continue to be in community with you. So thanks again, Saundra. Thank you, Patrick. And thank you all for joining us.